If you are over 40, this Stoic lesson will change your life. There comes a point in life when pushing harder stops working, not because you became weaker, but because you became more aware. After 40, effort begins to feel expensive, not physically, but mentally. You notice that forcing outcomes, forcing conversations, forcing yourself through situations that resist you no longer brings relief. It only adds weight. This is not failure. This is perception sharpening. If you feel tired in a way sleep does not fix, this message is for you. If your mind feels busy even when life is stable, this is for you. If you notice yourself reacting faster, regretting words sooner, or carrying emotional tension long after moments pass, you are not broken. You are at a threshold. Stoicism was never designed for beginners in life. It was shaped for those who had already tasted responsibility, loss, pressure, and repetition, for those who realize that chaos is rarely outside. It is usually inside, unexamined, unquestioned, and rehearsed daily. This reflection will not ask you to become passive, indifferent, or cold. It will ask you to become precise, to stop wasting strength on what does not respond to force, to understand why calm is not something you wait for, but something you practice through judgment. As you listen, you will not be rushed. You will be guided, thought by thought, reaction by reaction. You're not here to escape life. You are here to meet it with less inner resistance and more inner order. What follows is not theory. It is a shift in posture, a way of standing in your own life without bracing for impact. Chapter 1. The moment you realize force no longer works. There is a quiet moment most people never name. It happens when intensity stops producing clarity. You apply more effort, more explanation, more control, and instead of peace, you feel friction. This is the moment force reveals its limit. Earlier in life, force feels useful. You push through confusion, you override discomfort. You tell yourself that pressure builds character, and it does for a time. But later, force begins to distort judgment. You react instead of respond. You tighten where you should release. You insist where you should observe. Stoicism teaches that strength is not measured by how much pressure you can apply, but by how accurately you place your effort. After 40, this distinction becomes unavoidable. The body signals it. The mind signals it. You feel drained not because life is harder, but because your methods are outdated. Force fails because reality does not negotiate. Other people do not bend because you strain harder. Emotions do not settle because you demand silence from them. The Stoic recognizes this not with bitterness, but with relief. There is freedom in realizing you no longer need to overpower life to live it well. This is where wisdom begins. Not when you surrender responsibility, but when you stop confusing control with compulsion. When you learn that calm action outlasts aggressive effort. When you accept that some doors open only when you stop pushing and start aligning. If this realization feels unsettling, it should. It marks the end of one strategy and the beginning of another. And the next step is understanding what it truly costs to always be the one who holds everything together. The hidden cost of being the responsible one. Being the reliable one shapes you quietly. You learn to anticipate problems before they arrive. You hold your reactions so others can feel safe. You carry decisions longer than necessary because someone has to. Over time, this becomes an identity. You are the steady one, the composed one, the one who does not fall apart. What rarely gets examined is the price. Responsibility, when left unquestioned, turns into constant inner vigilance. Your mind stays slightly tense, scanning for what might go wrong next. Even in calm moments, you are preparing, not because danger is present, but because the habit remains. Stoicism does not reject responsibility. It refines it. It teaches that taking responsibility for outcomes outside your control is not virtue. It is confusion disguised as strength. The Stoic does not abandon care, but withdraws ownership from what does not belong to judgment or choice. After 40, this distinction matters. Emotional fatigue often comes from carrying roles long after they have stopped serving balance. You feel tired, not because you do too much, but because you feel accountable for too much. Other people's moods, their expectations, their reactions. The hidden cost is not effort, it is misdirected obligation. When you release responsibility for what was never yours to manage, something subtle happens. The mind loosens. Attention returns inward. Energy stops leaking. This is not selfishness. It is accuracy. And accuracy is the foundation of calm. When experience turns into noise instead of wisdom, experience is meant to clarify, but when it goes unexamined, it does the opposite. It accumulates. Memories stack. Old decisions replay. Regrets whisper. Lessons learned once keep interrupting the present as if they still need to be taught again. What should guide you begins to crowd you. After 40, the mind carries decades of reference points. Some are useful, many are expired. The mistake is assuming that all experience deserves equal attention. Stoicism teaches discernment, not recollection. Wisdom is not remembering everything. It is knowing what no longer needs to speak. Noise is created when past events keep demanding emotional engagement. You relive conversations that are finished. You argue with outcomes that cannot be revised. You measure the present against moments that belong to another version of you. This mental activity feels productive, but it drains clarity. The Stoic does not erase the past. He files it correctly. He learns, extracts principle, and releases the emotional charge. Experience becomes guidance only when it stops competing with the present moment for authority. When the mind grows quieter, something surprising happens. You do not lose depth, you gain direction. And with direction comes the first real sense of lightness many people feel in years. But clarity alone is not enough. There is one idea, simple and demanding, that determines whether this clarity becomes peace or turns back into exhaustion. The Stoic idea that separates peace from exhaustion. There is a single division that changes everything once it is seen clearly, not as a concept, but as a daily filter. What belongs to your judgment and what does not. Most exhaustion comes from crossing this line repeatedly without noticing. You wake up already managing outcomes. You rehearse conversations that have not happened. You feel responsible for reactions you cannot command. This constant reach beyond your authority creates inner strain. Not because you care too much, but because care has lost its boundary. Stoicism insists on a disciplined honesty. Your thoughts are yours. Your choices are yours. Your effort, when aligned with reason, is yours. Everything else arrives, unfolds, and departs without asking permission. When you try to govern it anyway, the mind tightens. Peace becomes conditional. Rest feels unsafe. Those who grow lighter with age learn this separation quietly. They stop arguing with reality internally. They act where action is possible and release the rest without resentment. Not because they gave up, but because they became exact. This idea does not make life smaller, it makes it precise, and precision restores energy. When the mind stops chasing authority it never had, exhaustion loses its grip. But even with this understanding, something still interferes. Reactions rise faster than judgment. And until this is examined, pressure will continue to feel louder than life itself. Why your reactions feel louder than life itself? Most moments in life are neutral. They carry information, not threat. Yet the body responds as if something urgent has been violated. The heart tightens. The mind accelerates. Words rush forward before clarity arrives. This is not because events are overwhelming. It is because reactions have been rehearsed longer than awareness. After years of repetition, the nervous system learns shortcuts. It fills gaps with assumption. It amplifies meaning where none was assigned. A comment feels personal. A delay feels disrespectful. A small change feels destabilizing. Life does not become louder. The internal response does. Stoicism does not ask you to silence emotion. It asks you to examine timing. Reaction occurs before judgment. Response waits for it. This pause, brief but deliberate, is where freedom lives. Without it, even calm days feel heavy. The reason reactions feel so intense is simple. They have been trusted without verification. Once you begin to observe them instead of obey them, their volume drops. Not immediately, but reliably. This is not suppression. It is perspective returning to its proper place. And when reactions lose their authority, something deeper becomes possible. Not endurance, but order. The difference between endurance and inner order. Endurance is often praised as strength. You tolerate discomfort. You hold your tongue. You carry stress without complaint. From the outside, this looks admirable. From the inside, it often feels like constant tension. Endurance alone does not create peace. It postpones collapse. Stoicism does not teach you to endure everything. It teaches you to arrange your inner life so endurance is rarely required. Inner order means your judgments are aligned with reality. Your emotions follow reason instead of leading it. Your actions arise from clarity, not pressure. When inner order is absent, endurance becomes a survival strategy. You push through situations that quietly erode you. You accept mental clutter as normal. You confuse restraint with wisdom. Over time, this creates resentment toward life itself. Inner order feels different. You still face difficulty, but it does not disorganize you. Stress arrives, is evaluated, and is placed where it belongs. Some things require action, some require patience, many require neither. The Stoic mind knows the difference. This shift matters after 40. Energy is no longer endless. What you tolerate defines how you live. When inner order replaces endurance, life becomes lighter without becoming careless. And yet, even with order forming, there is a habit that keeps pulling problems closer than they need to be. It turns events into personal burdens without asking permission. The mental habit that makes problems feel personal. The mind has a subtle reflex. It attaches itself to events as if they were judgments about you. A setback feels like a verdict. A disagreement feels like rejection. An obstacle feels intentional. This habit forms quietly, reinforced over years of interpretation. Stoicism challenges this reflex directly. Most events are indifferent. They are not aimed at you. They carry no opinion. Meaning enters only when the mind assigns it. Yet once assigned, it feels undeniable. This habit is exhausting because it keeps you at the center of every disturbance. Life becomes a series of personal negotiations. You defend, you justify, you internalize. The mind never rests because it believes it is always on trial. Awareness weakens this pattern. When you notice the mind personalizing neutral events, distance returns. Not coldness, but clarity. Problems shrink to their actual size. Emotional weight lifts without effort. This is not denial. It is correction. And correction restores proportion. As this habit loosens, something else becomes visible. Aging, when understood correctly, is not accumulation. It is refinement. And the Stoics understood this long before modern culture forgot it. What Stoics understood about aging? That modern culture ignores. Modern culture treats aging as loss. Less speed, less relevance, less intensity. Stoicism sees something else entirely. A narrowing toward what matters. A reduction of excess. A sharpening of judgment. With time, life strips away illusions naturally. The Stoic does not resist this process. He cooperates with it. Aging becomes a process of subtraction, not decline. Fewer compulsions, fewer false urgencies, fewer emotional entanglements that once felt necessary. This is why clarity can deepen with age, not because you know more, but because you are less distracted by what does not deserve attention. When concern is reduced, presence increases. When noise fades, discernment strengthens. The problem arises when this shift is misread. Instead of embracing refinement, many try to recreate intensity. They cling to habits designed for a younger nervous system. The result is friction. The body slows, but the mind keeps pushing. Stoicism offers permission to mature honestly, to let urgency fall away without guilt, to trust that fewer concerns can carry greater depth. Aging, then, becomes a movement toward alignment rather than erosion. And alignment reveals another discipline, one that feels uncomfortable at first. the discipline of allowing some things to remain unresolved, the discipline of letting things be unfinished. The impulse to resolve everything feels virtuous. You want closure, answers, clean endings. Over time, this impulse becomes a burden. You explain yourself when no explanation is needed. You fix what others must face themselves. You carry conversations long after they are complete. Stoicism introduces a difficult discipline, letting some things remain unfinished, not from neglect, but from wisdom. Not every tension requires resolution. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every silence must be filled. After 40, this discipline becomes essential. Energy is finite. Attention is precious. When you stop forcing completion, you regain both. The mind learns that stability does not depend on constant management. Unfinished does not mean unresolved inside. It means you no longer outsource peace to external closure. You allow life to move without dragging it back for explanation. This restraint feels uncomfortable at first. The mind resists. It fears loss of control. But what follows is surprising. Space opens. Emotional pressure eases. Calm stops being fragile. And in that calm, something shifts outward as well. People begin to respond differently. Not because you assert more, but because your steadiness carries weight. How calm becomes a form of authority. Authority is often confused with force, volume, urgency, presence that demands attention. Stoicism reveals a quieter form. Calm authority does not announce itself, it is felt. Others sense it because it does not need their agreement to exist. When your reactions slow, your words gain weight. When your emotions are not negotiating with every moment, your presence stabilizes the space around you. This is not dominance. It is coherence. People trust what is internally aligned. After 40, this form of authority becomes more powerful than persuasion. You no longer need to convince. You choose when to speak, and when silence carries more clarity. Decisions feel grounded because they are not rushed. Calm authority changes dynamics without confrontation. Others mirror your steadiness unconsciously. Conflict loses momentum. Respect arises without demand. This is the outward effect of inner order, but something even deeper is happening. Inside, motivation shifts. You stop proving yourself to life and begin choosing your actions deliberately. The silent shift from proving to choosing. Earlier in life, much of what you do is driven by proof. You prove resilience. You prove competence. You prove worth, even when no one asked for evidence. This pressure is rarely conscious. It lives beneath action, shaping decisions quietly. After 40, something changes. The cost of proving becomes visible. You notice how much energy is spent justifying choices internally. How often decisions are made to defend an image rather than serve alignment. Stoicism invites a quieter posture, choosing instead of proving. You act because the action is right, measured and sufficient, not because it will validate you. This shift is subtle but decisive. Motivation becomes cleaner. Regret loses its grip. When you stop proving, urgency fades. You do not rush to be seen. You select what deserves your time. What does not align is released without explanation. This is not withdrawal. It is sovereignty. The mind rests when it no longer performs. And in that rest, another tension appears. When life becomes simpler, the mind often feels unsafe. It has been trained on complexity. Why simplicity feels unsafe at first. When life quiets down, the mind often resists. Not because simplicity is harmful, but because it is unfamiliar. After decades of urgency, problem-solving, and constant engagement, calm can feel like exposure. The mind asks what it is missing. It searches for tension out of habit. Stoicism explains this without judgment. The mind becomes conditioned to stimulation. Complexity feels productive. Stillness feels suspicious. When demands decrease, awareness increases, and with it comes the discomfort of seeing oneself without distraction. This is why many people unconsciously recreate pressure. They fill silence. They take on unnecessary concerns. They confuse peace with stagnation. Simplicity threatens the structures that once defined identity. The Stoic response is patience. You do not force calm to feel safe. You allow the nervous system to relearn proportion. Over time, simplicity reveals its strength. Fewer concerns do not weaken life. They clarify it. As simplicity stabilizes, another challenge emerges. Loss becomes more visible. Without noise to mask it, grief and disappointment surface. Stoicism does not avoid this moment. It teaches how to meet it without hardening. The Stoic way of carrying loss. Without hardening. Loss changes shape as you age. It becomes quieter, less dramatic, but more constant. Missed paths, relationships that faded, versions of yourself that never fully emerged. When life slows down, these absences become clearer. Not heavier, just more visible. Stoicism does not deny loss, and it does not romanticize it. It teaches you how to carry it without allowing it to close you. Hardening is a defense, not a solution. When you harden, you protect yourself from pain, but you also block clarity and connection. The Stoic approach is different. You allow the weight of loss to be present without letting it define your posture toward life. You do not resist it. You do not dramatize it. You acknowledge what was not given, what was taken, and what simply passed. Then you return attention to what remains within your care. Loss becomes part of the landscape, not the center of it. This is how dignity is preserved. You do not need to erase pain to move forward. You only need to stop arguing with its existence. When loss is carried this way, something unexpected happens. The mind stops negotiating with the past. It releases the need to rewrite history, and in that release, a deeper stillness begins to form. What remains? When you stop negotiating with your mind, for years the mind has been negotiating nonstop. It argues with the past, rehearses alternate outcomes, bargains with the future, and debates emotions as if they were problems to be solved, rather than signals to be understood. This inner negotiation feels active, intelligent, even responsible. In truth, it is exhausting. Stoicism invites a radical shift, not silence, but authority. When you stop negotiating with every thought, you begin to see which ones were never meant to lead. Thoughts arise, they offer interpretations, but they are no longer judges. They are examined, not obeyed. When negotiation ends, what remains is not emptiness, it is steadiness, a sense of self that does not need to convince itself before acting. You notice that clarity does not come from winning arguments inside your head, but from refusing unnecessary ones altogether. This is where inner stillness becomes real. Not forced calm, not emotional numbness, a grounded presence that does not rush to justify itself. You act from judgment, not impulse, from intention, not pressure. The mind becomes a tool again, not a courtroom, and in that quiet authority, you begin to stand differently in your own life, not braced, not defensive, measured. There is only one step left. Not a new technique, but a final alignment. A way of living that reflects everything you have understood, without effort or display. The life that opens when you finally stand in your own measure. There is a moment when effort softens into accuracy. You no longer measure yourself against noise, urgency, or expectation. You stand in your own measure, not withdrawn from life, not above it, but aligned within it. This is not the end of striving, it is the end of strain. Standing in your own measure means your pace matches your judgment. Your commitments match your capacity. Your emotions inform you without ruling you. You act without needing to be witnessed, corrected, or affirmed. Calm is no longer a mood, it is a posture. This life feels quieter, yet fuller. Decisions are simpler because they are fewer. Boundaries feel natural because they are internal. You are not chasing peace and you are not defending it. You are practicing it through attention, choice, and restraint. Stoicism does not promise ease. It offers alignment. When alignment is present, difficulty loses its chaos. Loss has a place, Effort has a limit. Meaning has a direction. You move forward without carrying what never belonged to you. This is the change that matters after 40. Not becoming less ambitious, but becoming exact. Not shrinking life, but removing excess. When you stand in your own measure, life does not need to be controlled, it needs to be met.